There was one point in my weightlifting career where I was training 11 heavy sessions a week. 11, because I genuinely believed that was what was required to get to the top. Later down the line in training for the Olympic Games, I changed that approach to 5 sessions a week and made drastically more progress. Now, I coach lifters all around the world who are getting way better results on 3 or 4 sessions a week than compared to doing anything above that. So in this video, I want to answer the question that every intermediate lifter eventually asks in how often you actually should be training. Because the answer isn't the one that the internet is selling you. So here's the trap. You've been lifting for a couple of years, those newbie gains have sadly dried up. Progress has started to slow somewhat. So what's that first lever everyone reaches for? More. More sessions, more days, more volume. And this feels like the next logical step. And the internet absolutely rewards this mindset because there's always someone trying to sell you that their 6 or 7 session split is just the price of admission to eventually get that progress going again. And of course, I fell for it harder than anyone else. Back in the day, roughly 9 years ago now, I was training 11 heavy sessions a week, ending each week on a max out Friday, all in an effort to hopefully make my first big international team, pushing my entire life to the side while pursuing this. And at first, it absolutely worked. I was hitting PRs left, right, and center until I wasn't. And instead of pulling back when I should have, I just doubled down instead. More missed lifts, more sessions, more pressure. And then the more I took each session, every bad session, very personally. Got to a point where one afternoon I tried to snatch 120 for the first time, took 23 attempts in a row over 3 hours and had a mental breakdown because of it. And then eventually, another year or so after this moment, I finally come to the realization that more wasn't actually making me better, but it was making me worse. So after multiple years of this, I finally decided to strip back this very intense approach, in which I will preface, and even to have this work for as long as it did, as I said before, I needed to push aside work, money, a social life, everything else that wasn't the goal of making it was my first Commonwealth Games I was trying to make at the time. And here's the part that surprised me. When I first settled into training only 5 quality sessions a week, my lifting actually got better, not worse. My technical consistency improved, and I actually become the strongest I had ever been. And it's not just me. From coaching lifters across dozens of different countries now, patterns appear constantly. I'll take someone who's grinding out 5 chaotic sessions a week, drop them to 4 well-structured ones, and within a month or so, they're lifting more, not less than they currently did. And the most important part, they're enjoying the process again. Not because 4 is some magic number, but it is what works best for that specific lifter and their lifestyle. So let's break down why this happens, because once you understand it, you can assess your own situation and decide for yourself what is the best schedule. First thing we need to understand, frequency on its own doesn't directly drive results. When researchers have compared lower and higher session frequencies but kept the overall volume the same week to week, when it comes to strength gains, it comes out basically identical in results. In other words, the number of sessions per week isn't some magical number. It's essentially how you can efficiently spread that volume across the week for yourself. And also worth noting, piggybacking off that, volume does drive progress, but it comes with diminishing returns. Every extra chunk of work gives you a little less than the last one. And past a certain point, that scale begins to tip where that extra chunk of work just adds extra fatigue and then becomes counterproductive at this point. So if you take a sensible 5-day-a-week workload, smear it across 10 sessions a week, you haven't exactly added extra training, you've added extra fatigue, travel, warm-ups, stress for the same stimulus, if not actually less. Now, here's the bit that's specific to us Olympic weightlifters. This is the reason why we can't just train once a week and call it a day. Weightlifting isn't just about strength or power. In this sport, there is a very real skill element to it. The snatch, the clean, and the jerk are very technically complex movements, which are on a completely different technical level to other barbell movements. This means you need regular, repeated exposure to the movement to keep that motor pattern sharp. If you train the movements too infrequently, that skill development can then decay and you can somewhat feel a bit rusty each time you go in. That's the real argument for training more rather than less. But and this is the whole game, that skill practice only really counts if it's quality. Fatigue doesn't just make you tired, it changes the way that you move. Your turnover slows, your speed and tempo of the movement may suffer, and then just degrade the quality of the training. So when you just jam in extra junk sessions on top of fatigue, you're not dialing in good technique, you're just rehearsing inconsistency, and you're literally practicing to lift badly, which is something I am strongly against. So we put these two together and we get a window. Train often enough to keep that skill sharp, but not so often that fatigue wrecks that quality of training that we are trying to put in. And for most intermediate lifters, that window is between 3 to 5 sessions a week. So the big question is, where do you land in that window? It comes down to a handful of personal factors. For one, your training age and experience. As an intermediate lifter who's gone past that initial newbie gains phase, where you're past the point where any random session can give you a plethora of PRs, where you don't necessarily have the capacity or the time to train like a full-time athlete either. You are squarely within that 3 to 5 session range. The more experience you have, or perhaps the younger you are, the more frequency you can use and recover from. And with your recovery capacity, this is a big one. How is your sleep? How is your nutrition? What about your life stresses? Two lifters with the same numbers can have two completely different ideal training frequencies per week, because one sleeps 8 hours a night, while the other one sleeps 5 and has a stressful work life. Frequency has to fit with what you can personally recover from. I have a story from one of my ambitious lifters who was juggling 5 sessions a week and 2 jobs at the same time. The stress of all of this combined was too much and started to create a bit of a downward spiral. So we made an executive decision to change to 4 sessions a week, with that 4th session being somewhat of a shorter strength and accessory session, with the overall aim to give more time to de-stress and feel like a regular human with some downtime. With overall less work in training, she ended up making huge progress with this simple change of doing less, which for someone like myself, going back 9 years training 11 times a week, would have thought was crazy talk at the time. Now, when it comes to your schedule and lifestyle, 3 brilliant sessions that you actually show up for and can give 100% to will do much more for you than doing 5 sessions that you resent and end up not even adhering to completely anyway. Consistency over years will beat intensity for a few weeks or months every single time. Let me give you a quick starting point for each of these 3, 4, and 5 sessions a week, built for someone who considers themselves an intermediate themselves. For a 3-day-a-week program, this is perfect for a busy lifter who needs that time to recover. Every session is essentially a full session: a snatch movement, a clean and jerk movement, a pull, and/or a squat. And because you've got so much time to recover in between, you can afford to go heavier in all, if not most, of these sessions. And then to suit which specific lifter, you can even add on some accessories on these. When we move up to 4 days, generally we can split this. We can go 2 days for snatch, 2 days for clean and jerk focus, with your squats and pulls distributed across both. 1 front squat, 1 back squat per week is fine. This is a great sweet spot for most intermediates with 4 sessions a week. Now, if we go to 5 days a week, this gives some more room for variation to add here. We can add in some more skill primers, give squats their own main focus throughout the week, with even a 3rd squat session being a lighter, faster, or even some pause positional work. Here for a 5 session per week lifter, I'll generally allocate 1 movement each session in which the lifter can then push a bit heavier, while keeping the others lighter to be able to still get in that technical focus work while also not burning out at the same time. So in essence, to bring this all home, frequency per week is a dial that you set for what is best for your recovery and lifestyle. It's not a number you need to chase to prove that you're serious. More days doesn't equal more progress. Past a certain point, it just means more fatigue and diminished training quality. You need enough exposure to keep those skills sharp, but each one of those reps have to be quality. For most intermediate lifters, that's 3 to 5 times a week. Pick a number that you can repeat with quality for months on end, not a number that looks impressive, but you can't actually maintain that in reality. I learned that the hard way training 11 times a week. Don't make my mistake. And if you want to see what those quality sessions are like when they're put together, with the right order, right exposure, but with a little more technical focus to it, I have a free 4-week technical intensive program, which is in the link at the top of the description. It's not just a program, each session has a reason why it's built in, so you can see exactly why it's structured, why each variation is where it is, alongside how to perform each exercise correctly. Go grab it, give it a run, and let me know in the comments how many sessions per week you're running. I would be curious to see where everyone sits. And for those that want to go deeper into their weightlifting journey, YouTube has suggested 2 videos here that'll help you further.